this tier list is going to be basically from the regular person's perspective, not the race to world first, etc. Because we know how those bosses went for them, but obviously we have a different view.
Yep.
So you can use whatever criteria you want to rank the bosses, but let's see if we like the bosses, if we enjoyed them, or if they were just badly designed, etc. And I guess,
Disclaimer:
yep,
mine's gonna be heroic, so not
heroic.
mythic. I only
Okay,
yeah,
I mean,
for me.
you've
So
seen, yeah, I'm fine with that, but obviously I haven't done all the bosses on Mythic as well. But we've seen how they look in Mythic.
yeah,
We know
for
how
sure.
most of this how it works and etc. So,
Yeah.
so let's get started with the first boss, Ulgrax. What is your take on this boss?
I gave Uldrax a C. I have Uldrax all the way. That's my lowest ranked one. I didn't like the feeding. I mean, I know it's supposed to be a simple boss. The grips were kind of cool. I mean, it wasn't. It just wasn't a fun fight for me. It's
Okay,
just like it wasn't fun for a first
that's
fight.
fair
I
enough.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I will say this for in terms of difficulty, that was probably one of the hardest for bosses I've ever seen. Usually, the first
Okay.
boss, even on Mythic, right? Like heroic aside, but I'll talk from the Mythic perspective in this case. Usually, the first boss on Mythic is a little bit of a challenge, but you go in there, you fight a little for a while, you kill it, it falls over, and then
Yeah.
it's like a loot pinata, and you're farming this, and there's no problems
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
it.
Uh-huh.
We
Yep.
actually didn't kill that boss on our first night. It took a little bit
Okay.
of progression, right? It was not that easy to handle if you're a little bit of undergeared, etc. Right? So for
Yeah.
me, that was the hardest ever first boss that I fought on Mythic, and I haven't fought all of them. Um, but somehow I kind of enjoy that. Like I liked a little bit of a challenge. I didn't
Yeah.
want for this boss to just go over and fall. So I guess if we put it, I would put it maybe into high B, low A. So maybe if we agree to put it on B, maybe,
Sure. Yeah.
um, because it's I don't know if the first boss is supposed to just fall over, but I kind of like the difficulty, right? I kind of enjoy
Yeah.
the challenge. But maybe it should have been a little bit easier. So from design perspective, props to Blizzard. But maybe it should have been a little bit easier.
Let me say one thing on that. They changed. They made a change, and I think they wanted it to be a little bit tougher because I think maybe this isn't the first time, but there was no BOEs for Mythic until after this boss,
Yeah.
right? And then we know that's a big thing, right? Pugs go in, they kill the first boss, and then they farm for BOEs and try to make money. I think it was intentionally meant to be a little bit more difficult to curtail some of that BOE gold farming. Just a
Maybe,
thought.
maybe that's a good take. That's a good take. All right, second boss, Bloodbound Horror. What's your experience with that?
I had Bloodbound higher than Ulgrax. I had Bloodbound at a B. I like the splitting the raid. Uh, I like the positioning that has to happen in that between the tanks and knowing where to put it and line it up for the beams. I like the go out and go in. Um, I think it felt quite easy to conquer though, and so that's the only thing why I have it a little bit lower. I think once you kind of understood the biggest part for us on that was the tanking positioning. Um, in Mythic, it was a little bit different in the sense of the hit squad for the ads and making sure we got that, but that still was kind of easy. So it felt kind of an easy boss. Fun. It was exciting to get it done quick. So I rating it at a high B for
Okay.
me.
Um, I will agree on this one, and I'm not going to put it higher, mostly for personal reasons. But I kind of like the design, But yeah, it
Yeah.
took some time to figure out how you aim the beams, etc. That
Yeah.
circle
Yeah.
around. The problem with me was that so on Mythic, when you go into the underground phase, whatever, there's three big ads that spawn, and on Mythic, one of them is far away from the others,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what we did, and I guess that's the well accepted strat, is we had that small squad of basically,
Yeah.
which for
Hit
us it
squad.
was 2 DPS and one healer that would go and kill that far ad, and then everybody's gonna stay on the
Yeah.
other side. and I had to go and heal those two people, and that was not enjoyable, man. Like I managed to do it, like it was not hard, etc. But
Yeah.
like I'm a shaman, I play restoration shaman this year, so I
Yeah.
need people to be stacked so I can pop my
Yeah.
cooldowns, I
Yep.
heal everybody. And now all of a sudden I'm locked there, I'm spamming my
Agree.
healing surges. And I had to do that because like the healer on my end, the healer who'd come down with me was a preservation evoker. So for them going there and spamming their living flame, that was like it
Not
doesn't
gonna work.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was just sitting there spamming my healing surges, and at the same time the priests are doing these huge amounts of healing because they're
Yeah.
standing in the middle of the raid
Yeah.
and they're popping their
Yep.
halos. And I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, that's probably a fun fight, but I'm just standing here pressing that one button. So that's why I
It's
didn't
so
like
funny.
it. But it was not a bad design fight, I guess. For a second boss, it's also probably a
Yeah.
little bit higher on the difficulty curve. But I guess
Yep.
we can put it on the we can agree there.
Yeah.
All right, Sikran, what's your experience with that?
I'll let you go first on Instagram. I want to hear what your thoughts
Okay,
are.
so Sikran, so on Mythic, you have to, so there's those 4 people that get marked and they need to run out, etc. And on Mythic, eventually you drop those puddles when the boss hits you. You're going to run out of space if you don't manage your space
Yeah.
correctly. So
Yep.
on Mythic, though, you those 4 people cannot overlap with each other or with the other shades that you left out from the previous hits. So basically, on Mythic, you have to make this perfect square, right? Which is very tight and it's on the side. And we had a lot of problems with people doing all kinds of shapes that didn't resemble a square, so to
Yeah.
speak. For some reason, also, and that was really bad for me as well. That's personal, but for some reason, every time I would get this mechanic, I would freeze, I would lag out, right? And that was quite bad because then you wipe the raid, right? And they're like, "Why are you not doing your mechanic?" I'm like, "Guys, I did it on my screen, but I can see that I'm frozen, right? So I guess on their screens I'm still on top of the boss, and
Yeah.
we know how
Yep.
that ends." So
Yep.
that was relatively negative experience from that perspective. But otherwise, I kind of like the design of the boss because at the end the room is filled up, and then you're running out of space. Maybe you sack the last 4 people to get the mechanic, and they just run out in the empty space. So I would also put it between A and B. It was nice. It was interesting design, but my experience with it was also not something that was positive, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have it at A. I liked it. I like the positional. I think it just makes people you know have more awareness of what others are doing more often, and I like that. It kind of makes people just not do their rotation and not just go to one point, but now you have to pay attention to where the other and where you fit in that group and where your assignment should be, and it challenges the brain. So I like that. I think that's kind of helping the players get a little bit more intelligent than just doing what was that old boss in Naxxramas, the one that the big fat dude that it was, just the single
The
target boss where you're
patchwork,
just hitting. Yeah, yeah,
patchwork,
patchwork.
yeah.
Yeah, patchwork. Yeah, that's like this the dumbest fight, right? And it's like I like that level of mobility, movement, awareness of where you need to be versus proximity to other players, and understanding the real estate and kind of having to be really tight and coordinated instead of just like run over there and get away from people. It's like, no, run right here, make sure you're not too close to Johnny or Sally, and make sure you guys are in order so we don't blow each other up. I like that. So I like the mechanic in that one. I thought that was a fun one.
All right, so I guess A is fair. I agree on A. Rashanan, the Mythic Plus boss. What's your take on
Yeah.
this?
I like the fact that it was Mythic Plus and you take him down to, 60% and he shows up in the raid and you
Some
get to take
people are
him from
actually
60.
angry about that. They're like, "Why the
Well,
hell
yeah,
is
I'm
the
sure
boss
people
starting at
that have like big
60%?"
Yeah,
Uh,
like the people that have big execute at the top of the health pools,
yeah,
right? Like, you think about hunters and their marksman, their mark, hunter's mark, and people that do more damage when it's full is like,
yeah,
oh, sorry, he's already at
yeah,
60%. So and then for the others that have executes at sub 20, he's going to be at sub 20 a lot longer than the other bosses because he started at 60. So they're going to perform quite well actually because that execute phase
yeah.
is going to last a little bit longer. I have him at a B. I think you know, it's I didn't like his model. I'll be honest, I didn't like the bug. Um, the poisons and stuff are cool, and some of the spread out and those things are cool. The platform was super big, and so like movement and ability to fall off. I mean, I don't think we had anybody fall off, but I don't even know if you can fall off. But it seems like you can get gripped off. I think.
Yeah, yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was a cool fight. I have it as a B. I don't have any really personal. It wasn't a fun fight for me. I'll just say that
Okay.
it wasn't like super easy, but it wasn't super hard. So I kind of put it as the highest B. So like on the top side of B.
Okay. Yeah. To me, it was kind of neutral fight. I kind of enjoyed the mechanics. They were interesting. The running around could be a little bit annoying. There's
Yeah,
also two paths that the boss could take. So
yeah,
sometimes, you don't have the warlock gate set up correctly,
yeah.
so it makes it slower. And then the small ads that spawn. That was a little bit annoying because sometimes they would just turn and kill the person, and you would have to they would have to go for externals. That there were some moments there where you would wipe because some mistakes happened and it didn't feel like you had to wipe on the specific
Yep,
mistakes.
yep.
That boss actually took us way too many attempts to kill compared to regular guilds for some reason. So it was not a very positive experience for me as well. Um, but I guess for like a mid tier boss, it was fine. Kind of scripted fight once you know where to go with all the mechanics. So yeah, high B I guess is also fine. I guess I'm fine to put it there. Yeah. I don't know if I want to put it higher for a boss like that. All right, so let's move on to our favorite brute twister, Alvin Axe.
Yeah.
I'll just go straight away. Like this is D tier for me. As I said, this was the worst ever experience I've ever had in raid. Um, because of lags, because of the weak auras, and if it was designed a little bit better, maybe I could put it a little bit higher. But the sentiment in our guild is basically nobody likes egg bosses, right? Because you had
Yeah.
the one in I
Yeah.
forgot the vault, I think, with where you had to run
Yeah.
around and break the eggs
That
with the
was
staff. Yeah,
yeah, I was just talking about that
yeah.
one.
Nobody, I guess, enjoyed that one. Nobody enjoyed Brute Twister. It's a different topic whether or not you should have egg bosses, because I guess that's something that they like and they keep designing them. But the implementation of this one, whether or not you like eggs, that was Dismo, and
Yeah.
that's easy D
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, when you need that much external information helpers to get a kill, something's wrong, and that's bad design. So yeah, easy D.
Easy D. Okay. So let's jump on Kai'Veza. I guess I can go again first, but
Yeah.
I
Yep.
love this fight, man. I love this fight because,
Yeah.
as I said, it's simple mechanics, but that doesn't prevent the fight from being a huge
Yeah.
DPS and healing check.
Yep.
Because even if one person dies, then people get more lines on the transition, so you have to play good. But at the same time, you don't need any weak auras. There's no lag. It's just execution. It kind of gets a little bit annoying when people start, as you said, they start doing the same mistake over and over again. But it's
Yep.
usually like it's not one person. It's usually like I do 2 or 3 mistakes per night. But if everybody's doing two or
Sure.
three mistakes per night,
Yeah.
then it
Yeah.
just piles
It's
up,
one.
right? But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yep.
I don't know. That's my favorite fight. I love it. I love the design of how you spawn the orbs and then you get sucked into the middle, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
looks cool as well. Like the visuals are,
Yep.
are amazing.
Yeah.
So that's an S tier for me. That's my favorite fight this year.
Yeah, one of the things you didn't mention, which I like, is the execute, right? And that makes people have to use defensives. So again, it's another one of these fights where if you're not used to pressing your defensives,
Yeah.
you're gonna get one shot, and it's not like you have your whole health pool. If you hit 10%, you're dead. You're done. And so that's a nice, cool element that forces players that normally maybe don't push a defensive on a regular basis be very, very aware of like their health pool and making sure it's not just on the healer to keep me alive, but I need to push a defensive or consume a warlock cookie or a health potion
Yep.
to make sure I don't get to that 10%, which is a nice additional layer of like, oh, I need to do something. So I like this fight a lot. I think it's a good fight.
Do we put it an S?
Yeah, it's S
All right.
tier.
I'll add though, as a healer, I actually that's the one thing that I don't like. I don't like the 10% because my job is basically I have this bar and my goal, it's not to do
Yeah.
DPS, it's not to let this bar go to 0. And now there's
Yeah.
this other threshold that I actually don't see
Yeah.
exactly where it is on my bars.
No.
So I know I
But
need to
that's
keep
not your
people topped up.
job. It's
Yeah.
not your job. It's not. It's like I tell the rest of druids, it's not your job to spot heal. It's your job to
Yeah.
blanket the raid. That in this fight, it's not your job. Your job is it's their job to make sure they don't hit
Yeah.
10%. That's their
I get
responsibility.
that, but it's just like I'm a little bit annoyed because it's basically moving the health bar a little bit to the side, and you don't have a
It is.
visual for
Yeah, it
that.
is. It's cutting
Uh,
off 10% of your health
but
pool,
yeah, I
100%.
don't mind
Yeah.
it, right? I don't mind it, and yeah, and Mythic specifically, you gotta keep your defensives for if you get a mechanic because the Queen's
Yeah.
Bane, that's one of the hardest hitting abilities in the raid, I think. If you don't have
Yeah.
a defensive, you're gonna die. But yeah, if something happens, you need to be aware that like you even if you like running the orbs out. You might be a little bit of out of range for certain healers, so people need to be very self-aware and
Mindful when they're
ready.
using
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
for
but
sure.
but that's
Yep.
that's an aspect that I like. So, as I said, easily my favorite fight this year.
Very
All
cool.
right. So now Silken Court. That's a fight that we haven't seen on Mythic yet, but I don't think that's going to prevent us from ranking it. How has that been for you?
I love that fight. It's my favorite fight. I
Okay.
like the two bosses. I like the lines. I like the dispel mechanic. I like the flat like it but see I like when the game challenges people to have more awareness of what's going on around them. I think it's trying to make people just get out of your rotation. It's not always about damage, it's about execution, it's about positional awareness, it's about paying attention where other people are. And if you're not doing those things, look, you can't like as even for healers, you can't just dispel it. You got to wait till the person is next to the boss to do the dispel. If you're just dispelling it, you're wasting a dispel. And if you do that too many times, you wipe the raid, right? So if you get too far away from your webbed player, you wipe the raid. If you stay in, if you're not paying attention to ground mechanics, you're gonna get impaled. So I like that. I get it. It's a challenge, but I think it's an attempt to bring some of the awareness to raiders up from just pushing their rotation and moving out of circles on the ground.
Okay. I will add to this. I kind of enjoy the fight as well. The mechanics are cool. All right, the charges, how you stop the boss, and then the amps where they take more damage. Although I don't care much about that as a healer. The dispels are also cool. My problem with this fight is that compared to Kaiveza, where basically if you get a mechanic, it is your responsibility. It's very important that you handle it correctly, but
Yeah.
you're on your own, right? You know where
Uh-huh.
you need to go and you're not dependent on somebody else. While
Hmm.
Silken Cord, for example, as you said, those webs that are tethers between you and another person,
Yep.
you're kind of
Hmm.
dependent on the other person too, right?
Of
Because
course. Yeah.
especially when you don't get them from the eggs on the ground, but you get them on the
In the
second
second.
phase, and
Yeah.
somebody has to break it, but then somebody doesn't, and everybody
Yeah.
breaks it, and you're screwed.
Yeah.
And
You're
I
dead.
know
Right.
that this only becomes harder on Mythic because then the rate is divided into colors and you cannot touch anybody from the opposite color. So now it's more mechanics where it is your own responsibility, but you're also kind of dependent on other people not to walk on top of you or position correctly because, you have to get to a point and soak an orb, but then somebody's standing there, right? So this is kind of like adding a layer of difficulty that I don't look forward to. I don't enjoy that much. I know it's a group effort to kill a boss,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy, there's the mechanic. I know how to handle it. If I screw up, I screw up. I know it's my fault, but now I need to look for that other person too, and I have to care about them as well. And I don't know. Maybe that's what mythic rating is about, but that's something that I'm
Yep.
kind of not looking forward to. That said, though, I kind of enjoy the fight. I wouldn't mind putting it high, maybe A. I don't know if it's S for you.
No, I have it at the top for me personally, but I do agree with. I think it's perspective, right? Because like what you said is very true, and that's one of the reasons why I don't mythic raid right now
Yeah,
is because of
you
that
don't want to
that
deal with it.
dependency on other people, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and I know I can do what I need to do, but now you're telling me I need to do it with that other person, right? And they have to execute it properly, and that's why I'm not in a place where I'm ready for that yet. Um, but I do love that fight. It's my favorite fight. For me, it's S. But I respect what you're saying on like the mechanics, especially and and then in Mythic with the with even more awareness on, hey, don't cross paths, don't touch that other person because then you're gonna wipe the raid. I think that's gonna be super interesting on how guilds that are under top 2000 in the world are going to handle that. I think it's interesting. So
Okay.
I like it. I'm good with A. I'm good with S.
All right.
Definitely not B.
Yeah, yeah,
Definitely
yeah.
not C.
So low S or high A?
High A is good. I think high A is
High A is good.
probably,
All right.
yeah.
All right. And then we have the queen, the big butt queen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, was something else that we haven't played on Mythic, but what's your take on this fight?
Oh man. I will say I don't think it's as difficult as Brood Twister. Um I don't like the three different phases. I guess you could say four
Yeah.
technically. Um there's a lot going on there, and Mythic it's even worse. With the portals and the orbs. I think again it's one of those fights that's maybe overly designed for the top 3 or 4 guilds, and everybody else is going to suffer. I think conceptually, like it's kind of fun to see all those different elements in a single fight, but in execution and when you're dealing with 20 people, and one person doesn't soaks the wrong orb, they blow up the bubble
Yeah.
late, they blow it up early. They don't pay attention to the pull in, and they're too close because they're tunnel visioning on the rotation to pop the shield. They forget that they're going to get gripped in on the second platform, and they fall off.
And then the
They don't.
spells on the second platform,
Yeah, I mean,
obnoxious.
it's just yeah, exactly. It's just so much going on. I think it's really designed for the top, and I don't think that's fair for the rest of everybody. I have this one super low. Yeah, I have this as a C on mine.
Okay. I will say this. I kind of agree with you because this fight is really cool to watch. Like if you're just watching
Yeah,
it,
yeah. You're not playing
the
it.
design of the mechanics is actually amazing. Like you're jumping up over those circles, and then there's sports and those things that you need to carry over in the last phase, etc. Like when you're watching this, and when I was watching the race tour first, I had a blast. It looked
Yeah,
very hard, of course, but it also looked amazing. But then when you get to play it, and then there's all those little things that you already mentioned, and for example, even the webs that you get webbed to the ground,
yeah, yeah,
sometimes if you some classes have abilities to take those off, but then
yeah.
others just have to be positioned correctly and
Easy.
you
Yeah,
read them, etc. Right? The spells as we mentioned, and then the last phase also has all those mechanics going on. So I could see this being, yes, a little bit maybe too much for like the regular player, to handle. We actually had to prog this initially on heroic, right? It was
yeah.
not it
Us
was
too.
not given.
Wasn't a pushover. Yeah.
Exactly. The last old raid that we did, we actually had to kick some people for that last boss
Yep.
because they were
Us too. Yeah,
underperforming.
actually we finally killed it on the alt raid with all the alts. We didn't have to
Yeah.
bring in any mains.
We
So
don't do
yeah,
that a lot. We just had this casual run, but we had to trim for this to get killed. And then I can only imagine how much harder it is on Mythic. And I know that they're nerfing some of the stuff there right now. There were the problems with the webs that actually get collapsed in, where it
uh-huh.
would pass, but or actually the visual would go away, but you could still get hit after. And then all the stuff that you have to dodge on the ground. So that makes it not that enjoyable for me. Again, going back to Kayveza, it has only few mechanics, but the fight is very fun because it's well designed. This one has a ton of mechanics, and
Yeah,
ton of
yeah,
phases and things like
yep,
that. So
yep.
you easily get overwhelmed. So yeah, I'm fine putting it not high enough. I love the fight. I love watching it, but when you get to play it, and I don't think I'll enjoy wiping 200 times on this fight either. So maybe we can put it. You said what, C or B?
I put C. I put it at
C.
C.
I guess we can put it
Yeah.
low B, or I guess we can pull it C. Let's have something in the C tier as well. I think that's
I
fair.
mean, it's all perspective, right? And
Yeah,
I,
it
I
is
just like you
perspective.
said, it's
It's
amazing to
somewhere
watch,
here.
and it's amazing to think about like all the thought that went into it. But when you're executing it, and it does feel good when you're playing it
Yeah.
and everything's hitting right, but it feels extremely bad when people are popping early, they're not paying attention, and they actually run into the pop. They go to the wrong pop because two
Yeah.
people on one side got it and they don't know where to go, and like it's just like, and it's very frustrating, even like So yeah, I just think for, again, if you're world top 100, this is an amazing fight to prog in, I'm sure, and because of the challenge and the different elements within it and the responsibilities of a lot of different individuals. It's not just do damage, it's put things in the right place, use your abilities that maybe, a shaman, you can do your little wolf thing to get out of
Yeah.
it, right? And then warlock, you can use your warlock port to get your roots, and deterrence. And, it's cool to have classes of freedom, whatever. Like, that's cool to be able to incorporate and see people switching specs to do some of those things to accommodate that. Um, so that part of it's cool, but in execution, when you think about the larger community, it just feels like it's going to be unachievable for a lot of people,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And I get it. It's the last boss. It needs to be hard, but maybe that's a little bit way too far for this one.